The silence before the scream. True crime stories for sleep. There are certain sounds that never leave you. The faint hum of a refrigerator in an empty kitchen. The soft tapping of rain on the window when no one else is awake. And sometimes it is the sound that isn't there at all that haunts the loudest. That was how it began in the small town of North Haven. A quiet place where life moved gently, where people still left their doors unlocked and everyone waved when they passed by. It was the kind of town that felt untouched by the chaos of the outside world. Until one morning, the Dawson family simply vanished. No one heard a struggle. No one saw a thing. It was as if they had just dissolved into the air, leaving behind a house frozen in time. When the police arrived, they found the front door slightly open. Breakfast had been started. A pan of eggs on the stove, now cold. The morning news still played on the TV. Upstairs, the beds were unmade. Clothes laid out neatly on the chairs as if the family had planned to go somewhere that day. But their car was still in the driveway. Their phones were on the kitchen counter. And the family dog, Bailey, was pacing by the back door, whining softly as though waiting for them to return. Detective Aaron Miles had seen strange cases before, but this one unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. Something about the silence inside that house felt unnatural, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. He walked through each room, careful not to disturb anything. On the dining table lay a single piece of paper with a child's handwriting. It was a note, drawn in blue crayon. It read, "Mom says we'll hear the song soon." The handwriting belonged to 7-year-old Emily Dawson. Her parents, Daniel and Marissa, were well known in town. Daniel was a high school teacher, and Marissa ran a small bakery by the corner. Nothing about them suggested trouble. They were quiet, polite, ordinary. That was what made it worse. The investigation began with the usual questions. Neighbors were interviewed. Phone records checked. There were no signs of forced entry. No ransom notes. No withdrawals from their bank accounts. Nothing. But then came the security footage. At exactly 2:13 a.m. the night before they disappeared, the camera across the street captured something strange. The Dawson house lights flickered once, then went dark for nearly a full minute. When they came back on, a shadow appeared in the upstairs window. It moved slowly, almost cautiously, as if trying not to be seen. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't Marissa. It was taller, thinner. And it stood perfectly still for almost 10 seconds before turning away from the glass. Detective Miles watched that footage again and again. There was something about the figure that didn't feel human, though he couldn't say why. It wasn't the shape, but the stillness. As if it didn't need to breathe. By morning, news of the disappearance spread through North Haven. Reporters arrived. Volunteers searched the nearby woods. But the days turned to weeks, and the Dawsons were never found. That's when people started talking about the song. It began as a rumor. A few residents claimed that on the night the Dawsons vanished, they had heard faint music playing through the fog. Not from a car or a house, but from somewhere distant. A melody so soft that you couldn't tell if it was real or just your mind filling the silence. One woman described it as a lullaby that didn't want to be heard. Another said it came from the direction of the river, where the mist gathered thickest. The police dismissed it as imagination. But Detective Miles couldn't shake the image of that note on the table. "Mom says we'll hear the song soon." 2 months later the case went cold. The house was sealed, the family declared missing, presumed dead. But Miles kept the file on his desk, unable to close it. Something inside him whispered that the story wasn't over. Then one night, he got a call from an old man who lived on the outskirts of town. He sounded shaken. He claimed he had found something near the riverbank. When Miles arrived, the man led him to a spot beneath a cluster of old birch trees. The moonlight fell through the branches like silver veins. There, half buried in mud, was a small hand-crank music box. The lid was rusted but still worked. When Miles turned the handle, it began to play a faint, eerie melody, a lullaby that wavered off-key as if resisting being remembered. He felt something cold brush his neck. Just the wind, he told himself. But deep down he knew better. A local technician restored the recording from the security footage, hoping to capture any sound that might have gone unheard. When they enhanced the audio, a faint hum appeared just before the lights flickered. It matched the exact melody from the music box. Miles stared at the waveform on the screen. The rhythm was uneven, almost like breathing. And then, beneath the hum, another sound emerged, a whisper. Too distorted to understand, but close enough that it made his chest tighten. For weeks after that, he couldn't sleep. He would lie awake and hear that same tune faintly drifting through his thoughts. He told himself it was stress, that the brain plays tricks when you stare too long into mystery. But one night, around 2:13 a.m., his phone lit up. Voicemail. No number. Just static at first, then the same lullaby, clearer this time. And at the end, a child's voice. "We can hear the song now, Mr. Miles." He froze. No one outside the department should have known about that note. The next morning, the voicemail was gone. Deleted somehow. The tech team found no record of the call ever existing. In the following months, North Haven changed. People moved away. The bakery was boarded up. The house on Meadow Lane remained empty, though neighbors swore they sometimes saw lights flickering inside again. A new family tried to move in once. They stayed for only 3 nights. The husband later told police he woke up to the sound of a child humming from the hallway, followed by the faint creak of a music box opening. When he went to check, the sound stopped, and the hallway smelled faintly of wet soil and flowers. He didn't stay to see more. Years passed. The Dawson case became a ghost story told in whispers. Parents warned their children not to wander too close to the river after dark. They said sometimes if the fog is thick enough, you can hear that same song drifting through it. Detective Miles retired not long after. He left town quietly, never giving interviews, never reopening the file. But every so often, he would receive a plain envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside would be a single sheet of paper with a child's handwriting. Each note contained the same words. "Can you hear it now?" He never told anyone. He simply burned them one by one, listening to the faint echo of that tune in his memory. The house on Meadow Lane still stands today, empty but untouched. The grass grows high, and the windows remain shut. Yet locals say that on some nights, if you stand near the gate and listen closely, you'll hear the faint sound of a music box playing from somewhere inside. No one goes near it anymore. Not because they're afraid of ghosts, but because they fear the silence that comes afterward. It's not the scream that haunts you. It's the silence before it.